All right. So, I guess I'm done talking with everybody else on the internet, so I might as well make my video. This is my review of the first presidential debate of 2020, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And, yeah, it was a shit show. And largely due to Donald Trump always interrupting. It was maddening how much he could not shut the fuck up when it wasn't his turn. And, in some ways of looking at it, if you value somebody who can, keep breaking the rules as being somebody who looks tougher, maybe some people think he won because of that. But for a lot of us, it was just incessant. In fact, there's a very quick mock up on Joe Biden's store on his website right now that says, can you just shut up, man? Because that's something that he said to the president in the middle of a debate, because he kept on getting interrupted. And, yeah. It makes it tough to call because the people who already support the president know who he is, and that's why they support him. They support him being a bully. That's why they support him. So it does make it tough to call. You know, for me, for my demographic, it made him insufferable. But, anyways, the first subject they brought up was the Supreme Court, and he said, "Our appointment, ACB, is good in every way." And he went on his basic vocabulary, basic Trump speech about, she's good. She's, no one's ever seen anyone as good as her. You know, he did his whole Trump thing on that, and then he said, "We won the election, and we have the right to do it. The Democrats would do the same in our place." You know, I don't blame Trump for nominating a Supreme Court justice. That is his job, and I would at least like to know the name of the person who was getting held up. Because of their constantly trying to change the rules of what they can do in election years. The reason why we know Merrick Garland's name is because he was appointed by President Obama and never confirmed because of the Senate. This is something that we need to look at the Senate about. I don't blame Trump individually for picking the next Supreme Court justice and at least giving us the name. I will certainly blame Mitch McConnell for changing the rules that he set. But that's my feelings about it. Somebody who's a Trump fan probably feels different, but Biden says that the people should have a say in who goes on the Supreme Court. Votes have already been cast, and this is going to be very important for Roe v. Wade and the Affordable Care Act and whatnot. And, all of those things sound good to me. However, when Trump interrupted and said that, Ruth Bader Ginsburg once said that a president is elected for 4 years, that's a thing. It was said, and she's the justice that he's trying to replace. And really, Trump had nothing to do with the stalling by Mitch McConnell. Trump wasn't elected yet. He wasn't in office yet. So he had nothing to do with the 2016 debacle, where they stalled 13 months until Trump got into office so that they could appoint their own Supreme Court justice. They really need to streamline the rules on that and really just they need to codify it in such a way where we acknowledge that Merrick Garland was screwed. The Democrats were screwed by the Republicans, and make sure that shit doesn't happen again. And that's going to have to probably take an amendment to the Constitution. We've found out how somebody can tip the scales in the favor of conservatism, or whatever ism they're representing by these dirty tactics. So we need to fix it. Every time we find a little loophole that can be exploited this way, we need to just patch it up. Trump then repeatedly tried to call Biden socialist in the debate, tried to paint him that way, whereas people like me who were supporters of actual progressivism, we're a little shocked by that, because no, he is not a progressive. No, he is not a socialist. That's other people in the Democratic Party. Sorry, I gotta plug my camera in. I felt like Trump's interjections on Biden were a lot stronger in voice and commanding power than Biden's, if not substance. Biden does have substance on his side and facts, but this is a show, and so I worry about how the debate actually affects the election. Are we just giving Trump the ability to show that he can be just as bullyish as he was in 2016 with Hillary Clinton on the stage? Clearly facts don't matter to his followers. On healthcare, Trump looked stronger than the moderator when he was talking to him. He looked stronger than Chris Wallace, and his ability to have his way with how the debate was going. And Trump's interjections on Joe looked visibly jarring, like he was actually knocking thoughts out of his head. That's how bad Trump's interruptions were. They talked about expanding the court and ending the filibuster, and Biden said, let the people vote. And Trump's interruptions kind of ended that segment, and it got Chris Wallace to just say, we're moving on. And it looked like it was jarring Biden. On the coronavirus, Biden made a whole bunch of good points about Trump, and then Trump's only response was, millions of people would have died if you were in charge. Fake news. And then Biden had a few more good points, but he was a little disjointed at that particular moment when he was trying to come back on that. Then Chris Wallace talked about the vaccine. Trump said, we'll have it soon. Biden said, he's lying. On the economy, Trump said, Biden wants to shut down the country. I want to open it back up. More people will be hurt by shutdowns. They want to keep it all shut down till after the election. And then Biden tried to respond to that, and he was cut off by Chris Wallace. And he was not having a good time right about then in the debate. They talked about masks for a while. Trump mocked Biden for wearing a giant mask. I felt like Biden did mention in there that Trump was holding very unsafe rallies, but he could have said it a little bit stronger, a little bit clearer, really hit that point home that Trump's rallies were dangerous. And Biden says, he's a fool. He encourages no masks at the rallies. And Trump said, you'd have rallies too if you could draw crowds. Which is sort of bully sounding, but like it's a popularity contest, and you aren't popular. This shit sounded like high school, really. This whole shit show. So then they talked about the V-shaped versus the K-shaped recovery, and Trump's answer, it seemed like he didn't even understand the difference between V-shaped and K-shaped recovery. He just said, Biden will destroy the country with tough shutdowns. Have you seen the divorce rates, the alcoholism rates, the drug addiction rates? And Biden actually answered the question and said it looks more like a K-shaped recovery because Trump only cares about millionaires. So I give Biden all the points for that segment because Trump didn't even really respond to the question. In fact, later, Chris Wallace was like, you don't have to give me a response to the question I ask. You get 2 minutes to say anything, but I'd like it if you answer the question. When a moderator has to tell the president that, wow. Trump said people want it open. Biden said people want it safe. Trump's taxes came up, and at that point, I felt like Chris Wallace's questions to the president were harder hitting than Joe Biden in that segment. I was like, what the hell is going on? Is he, debating the moderator or Joe? On tax in general, not Trump's tax returns. Biden said he would repeal Trump's tax gift to the millionaires, and Trump said, "Why didn't you do anything in all your years in office?" Basically, I did more in 47 months than you did in 47 years. Trump also said that when the stock market goes up, that means jobs, which would have been a really good answer for the V-shape or K-shape recovery question that happened 10 minutes before that. It was actually the answer that would have represented how he feels on that if he understood the difference between those two concepts. Trump then kept on accusing Biden's son, Hunter, of taking $3 million from China, and then it was like $3 million from the mayor of Moscow, and Biden was like, look, that's lies. And this isn't about family or ethics, it's about you, the American people, and how you're doing, right? And so he had, especially from Trump's tax returns, he had ample ammunition to start firing at Donald's family. And he didn't. He had Ivanka Trump getting consulting fees when she was actually working for the same company that she was getting consulting fees for, in basically a fake corporation just set up so that she can skim money off the top of giant real estate deals. That shit, he could have hit him with. It's huge. It's evidence of fraud. Chris Wallace asked the president to quit interrupting, and that was just a real moment. And actually, I will say that the president interrupted maybe half as much for the rest of the show, but still at a level that was jarring and incessant. Then they brought up race issues, and Biden said it's about equity and equality and stuff. And he said that Trump uses dog whistles to generate racist sentiment, which I agree with. Trump said, I have all these high-ranking people supporting me. I have the police chiefs. I have like hundreds of them. I have leaders in this city, and this city, and this. He doesn't name them. And then he says, and you can't even say the words law and order. You know? And name me somebody in law enforcement that's high-ranking that supports you. More, I'm popular with these kind of people and you're not. Again, high school shit. Biden, basically, his plan for addressing the racism issue with police is, I'll bring people together from the community and the police and the fire department and all that, and we'll talk about it. Which, he does a lot of that. Like, let's bring people together and talk about it. Let's make committees and stuff. This is not a good thing in my eyes when I'm looking at Joe Biden. This whole making committee after committee, and I want action. So, even from the left, for me, that looked a little weak. He also said peaceful protest is not violent, and violence in response to things is never appropriate. So he was basically preempting Trump, probably asking him to say that to Antifa, which, who the fuck is Antifa? Antifa isn't even a real organization. Biden said as much. Then Chris Wallace did another hard-hitting question at the president, which is weird because he's from Fox News, by the way. And then Chris Wallace said, why did you end critical racial theory being taught in governments? And then Trump was like, well, they were teaching people to hate this country. And then Biden was like, people need this training to empathize with other people and understand their plight. This is important training. And then Trump said, during his administration, division was worse, and the crime was worse, and the violence was worse. And then Biden was like, no, things got worse on his watch. And yeah, I'll just say it's a toss-up for who won in the debate, but I know this year it has been particularly worse under Trump. This year has felt at times like the 92 LA riots over Rodney King, with the George Floyd protests and the Breonna Taylor protests. I'm like, this is getting to levels that I haven't seen for most of my life. I was young when I remember the 92 LA riots, so yeah, this is the worst I've seen since then. Then they talked about law and order. Trump said, this is a party issue. It happens in Democrat-run places, the big cities, and it just so happens, the big cities are the ones that have all the Democrats in high concentrations, and that's why he didn't really feel like, dealing with the coronavirus, because it attacked more liberals than conservatives in the beginning. Now it's pretty much all over the place, but that was one of the things that we have reports came up in their discussions of how they were going to address it. They, Jared Kushner was like, well, it's attacking, liberal strongholds in cities where they're packed together more than it's attacking our people. So let's see how this plays out. So, yeah. But they were talking about Law and Order, not COVID at that point. Um, Trump was basically saying that, these riots only happen in, places where Democrats run things, and Democrats run things in the big cities where there's enough, you know, people to have a march or a protest or like a movement of any kind, where there's enough people to have riots. It's like, it's a no-brainer, that the person who's going to be the mayor of the city where a riot happens is going to be probably a liberal mayor, because the bigger the city, the more likely they are to have their own chapter of their own flavor of, let's protest the death of this other guy that died somewhere else in the country, but is now the last of a long list of names that we are martyring. So it that point really is, to me, redundant. But then I felt like Biden owned Trump on his use of the word suburbs, and really showed how it was a racist dog whistle that he was using. And at that point, I felt like Biden really woke up and was energized, swinging. I was like, finally, here you are. And that was probably, to me, the best moment. Now, some people, like the T-shirt on Joe Biden's website, probably think that when he told the president, just shut up, man, um, that's the moment they remember. But for me, it was owning him on the word suburbs. Then they talked about, Chris Wallace said reimagining the police instead of saying defunding the police. And, Biden answered and said that he didn't want to defund the police. And it really made me wonder, like, why is Chris Wallace wording things in a way that Biden is going to agree with? It's like, this. It was weird. But Trump was interrupting him very well in that segment. But Biden did say, I don't want to defund the police, which is like taking a whole bunch of his voters who say, no, defund the police means those things like reimagining the police. It doesn't really mean like just police get zero funds. He's basically, for those voters, he is now just not Trump. And that's another thing. He did the same thing later on in the debate with another issue. Chris Wallace asked some more questions, and Biden said that Trump continuously pours gasoline on the fire. Trump said, he wants to bring in the National Guard, and why didn't you call these places to tell them to bring in the National Guard? And Biden's like, I'm not in charge. I've been retired for 3 years. It's not my place to call all these people and tell them what to do. Yeah, it's Trump's America. Wallace asked both of them, why should you be elected? And Trump was like, well, despite all my detractors, I've done a good job. His party left 128 judges openings, and you can't be a good president if you leave those openings for judges. But the thing is, the same stalling on Merrick Garland was a Senate who weren't going to confirm judges to other places too. So it's rubbing salt in the wounds of the Democrats who saw how all of those openings were left vacant because Obama couldn't do anything with a Republican-controlled Congress. But it was wrongfully putting the blame for that on Obama and Biden because they would have appointed all of those people if they had the votes to confirm all those people, including Merrick Garland. And then Biden just pointed and said, under this president we become weaker, sicker, poorer. He's Putin's puppy. Then Trump said, your son got $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow. And then Biden was like, you're a liar. And that went on for like 3 minutes. Just back and forth with those same things being said. It was very not fun to watch. Then Chris Wallace changed the topic to the environment. And Trump was like, well, I want clean water and air. I want the cleanest water and air. But I don't want to destroy our businesses. And we need better forest management. Which I guess is just pandering to, the fact that we have a lot of wildfires right now. And then it doesn't really gel well with the fact that Trump was pulling funding for, things like the response to the fires in California. But Chris Wallace asked his question again to Trump to make it really specific. Do you believe in man-made climate change? And Trump said, yes, but forest management is really needed. I talked to all these other world leaders, and they have trees that are more flammable, and they don't have the problems we have because they manage their floors of their forests. And I was like, motherfucker, okay. If you take all of the pine needles, the bed on the bottom of the forest out, you're going to have erosion problems, and you're going to be destroying the habitat of bugs and all sorts of wildlife that lives there. Okay? The world isn't supposed to be one big landscaping project. It's not. I have the same problem with the wall. Why the fuck are you going to put up a wall like that that's going to stop larger animals from being able to migrate when maybe they're going to want to migrate? Wallace also asked the president, if you believe in climate change, why did you repeal a whole bunch of rules that Obama set? And Trump's answer to that was basically, I didn't want prices to go up. It's business, Then Biden talked about renewable energy and making the federal fleet electric, and then charging stations and weatherized buildings. And I remember some of this from the Obama era, the weatherized buildings thing in particular. Also, putting air in your tires, making sure that you have enough air in your tires was going to make your car a little bit more fuel efficient, and they were right. Check the air in your tires. Anyways, Biden said, rejoin the Paris Accord. We spend billions of dollars on natural disasters that happen, and this is more than my reforms would cost, basically. And since some of my family just got hit by a hurricane in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and they also are the kind of people that will vote for Trump, I have feelings about that. Then Trump went into like a litany of rants about things that Biden had been saying, and then he cornered Biden into saying that he does not support the Green New Deal, And Trump was like, oh, that's a big statement. And the reason why Trump was pointing that out was just basically trying to divide the left. Part 2 coming up right after this. I'm reaching my video limit.